As far as freaky foes, the monsters on land aren't any less scary looking than the ones out at sea. There's the classically horrifying Redeads and Floormasters, the former look and sound arguably even scarier than their N64 counterparts, while the latter are lonely, shadowy entities that have been given an arm, grabbing a screaming Link, Medley, or Makar by the cranium and yoinking them back into the same black hole they emerged from head first. All of the game's undead enemies can be found together in the Earth Temple too, which is essentially an underground crypt housing them. Even the boss, Jalhalla, is made up of several Poes, aka ghosts bound by a haunted mask. Poes themselves are now able to possess Link in this game, which affects the player's movement by reversing the controls, while the Poes' masks laugh above Link's head until they're finished toying with him, then disappear without a trace. This all pales in comparison, though, to the actual scariest creature of the night in this wild world, Tingle. That's right, it's time to talk about Tingle, the eccentric cartographer returning from the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. This character fascinated my brothers and I growing up. He's a delusional, middle-aged man who believes he's a reincarnated fairy. First seen in this game imprisoned on Windfall Island for unclear reasons. It can be inferred that he stole the Pictobox hidden in the crawlspace of the town jail, which also hides human skulls, since he does know about it, but Tingle claims he was mistaken for a troublemaker and disrespectfully locked up here. In the HD version, we're given a little more detail as Zunari, the salesman, explains that he originally traveled with Tingle to Windfall Island, but the man was immediately arrested based on his somewhat suspicious looks and thrown right into jail. This joke about his incarceration would be honored later in Breath of the Wild, with Tingle's shirt being found in the Castle Town prison ruins where sinners were imprisoned. Whether or not you choose to believe the faux fairy to be innocent, his true intentions are concerning at best. After releasing him from his shackles, Tingle returns to his home on Tingle Island, where we can stare in awe at a monument of his truly in the form of his own spinning head crowning a giant wooden tower reportedly powered by fairy magic. That sounds fun and whimsical, but in actuality the tower spins by way of manual labor carried out by Tingle's own family, and a stranger. It is here we meet his twin brothers Knuckle and Ankle. The latter brother's apparent favorite proverb is one may as well hang for a stolen sheep as for a stolen lamb, which is a grim way of saying that if the punishment for a bad action and a worse one is the same, there's no reason not to do the worse one. What the heck, Nintendo? He's reportedly happiest when he's tending to the Tingle Island flower garden, but we never get to see him do that throughout the entire course of the playthrough. Instead, Ankle and another Tingle lookalike, David Jr., are made to indefinitely push this wheel to make the tower spin because Tingle is deranged. Despite his similar appearance, David Jr. is not actually related to Tingle or his brothers at all. You see, when he was 17 years old, David Jr. set out to plunder the legendary ghost ship his now deceased father once saw with his own eyes. However, his ship was wrecked after a spell of seasickness, and David Jr. awoke in a daze on Tingle Island, suddenly dressed in his current uniform and forced to work under Tingle. Besides Ankle telling David Jr. that self comes before wealth, no mention of compensation is given. So is David Jr. truly an indentured servant, or is he justly paid for his service? One would hope the latter is true, as Tingle must be rolling in rupees after charging Link to decipher the Triforce charts, which are necessary to save the world, only adding to Tingle's moral ambiguity. I could honestly speak much more about the oddly darker side to Tingle, taking future games into consideration, but that's a topic for another time. So let's save our rupees for now, but before I move on from the misunderstood mapmaker, I would be remiss not to mention certain distressing dialogue seen exclusively via the Tingle Tuner, an item from the original that was replaced with the now useless Tingle bottle in Wind Waker HD, because again, Miiverse is dead. For those not aware, the Tingle Tuner was a truly incredible feature accessed by connecting the Game Boy Advance to the GameCube with a link cable, technology explained in Universe by Tingle to run on fairy telepathy. It allowed a second player to control a cursor with Tingle's beautiful face on it and assist player 1 by offering a varied selection of items, some with benefits unique to the Tingle Tuner, like the Tingle Balloon, which notably acts similar to the hover boots from Ocarina of Time by allowing Link to walk on air for several seconds. What's more, as I just alluded to, Tingle offers tips, quips, and comments relating to where Link is in the game, which curiously includes mention of a secret message he finds written underneath a skull in Dragon Roost Cavern. It's actually a note some poor explorer wrote as they were nearing death, before mentioning treasure they stashed away in another room. Another concerning death note says the following: "Will this be the last time I ever look upon the sun?" Special thanks to Anton and Carrick Alex for dumping all of this dialogue online for easy reference, so I don't have to resort to memory, as I sadly no longer have the equipment necessary to play through the original game with a GBA like this. There's some great stuff on here that Wii U only players never got to see, like Tingle claiming the mushrooms that grew on his pillow in the Windfall Island jail cell were quite tasty. Despite him still holding an old grudge he asks you to take care of by bombing the jail that once held him. Seriously. An actual fairy worth mentioning in this video is the Queen of all Fairies, a large childlike sprite who first appears by lifting her head up with her back turned to the camera as the typical Great Fairy's Fountain intro begins on harp. Then, as the baby-faced queen turns her head, a creepy, carnivalesque, toy-like version of the song plays instead, as she giggles with those blank eyes signature to the Great Fairies of this game. This deity holds a dolly resembling a miniaturized version of the standard Great Fairies, which has eerie implications even if she isn't a malevolent presence. As the queen of the fairy world, are these Great Fairies just her playthings? After raising her doll into the air and stretching out its limbs without physically touching it, she smashes the toy to summon forth two standard fairies endued with the elements of ice and fire, who then fly into Link to power up his bow and arrows. If that wasn't upsetting enough, the Fairy Queen then starts swaying back and forth, before hitting on Link, which sparks a priceless reaction from the King of Red Lions, and hanging listlessly like the doll she was just holding a minute ago. Does that mean that this isn't her true form and she's simply communicating with Link through a large puppet? I'm not sure I'd like to know. While on the topic, there's a quirk specific to Wind Waker involving fairies that revive Link when he's downed, in that they, unlike all other similar fairies in the series, express a great sadness when they're captured and stuffed into a bottle. Except for maybe Skyward Sword, where they repeatedly ram into the side of the glass, presumably to try and escape. The Wind Waker fairies, though, emote with a big frown plastered on their face, and the way Link holds the bottle even makes the wand they hold look like a big old teardrop, which is admittedly easier to see in standard definition. Okay, before really sinking down into the depths of the Great Sea for the final showdown against Ganondorf, I need to first take care of a few smaller side quests. I'm now going to do a speedrun of all the minor dark aspects I think are worth mentioning, but couldn't quite fit in with the rest of this musty old script. Number 1. Jump scares. There are actually quite a few that don't involve the moblins or Reedids, including a horde of Keese, who are only visible after lighting this underground grotto, and a foggy submarine that reveals a Wizrobe only when this switch is pressed. Another is actually part of a cutscene in the Wind Temple, where, upon Makar planting the last seed in this room, 4 floor masters suddenly appear and drag him into their void as the camera zooms into it. There's also the astounding number of mini-blins waiting for Link in the Savage Labyrinth, though I think the frame rate down there is even scarier. Number 2. Link's ability to control animals, statues, and even people is unsettling to think about. The command melody is especially eerie, as it's a song that allows its performer to enter the mind of another and completely take over their body without any real restrictions, like a time limit. After conducting the song, Link is shown to be totally absorbed in a trance with his eyes closed as he intensely concentrates, and his hands move in a circular motion like a puppet master. Do Makar and Medley, for example, fall entirely under this spell, and forget everything they've done under Link's control? Are they aware of what's happening as their body is being moved around against their own free will while someone else hijacks the driver's seat? Either option is discomforting, even if Link would never do them harm. But Link's not truly the one in control, now is he? I have to talk about the seagulls too. Placing this pair that looks like a sweating, screaming face atop Link's head reportedly steals the hearts of these birds and somehow allows the boy to manipulate them in the same manner as the command melody. You can even sacrifice one by making it nosedive into a bomb on Dragon Roost Island just to fatten Link's wallet, or cruelly destroy Sue Belle's precious jar. Just don't speak to her directly after, she still knows it was you. Number 3. I know that his intent is to use the pictographs he has Link take around the island to help the victims' subjects change their ways, but it's funny to me that Lenza requires Link to capture the instance of pure fear on this individual's face, and makes it very clear that he needs to see the moment the fear reverberates through his soul, just to help this timid man conquer his cowardice. Number 4. Where did this Goron get his hands on these skull tower idols made of the fossilized skulls of strange creatures? It certainly stands out from the rest of the game's decorations, mainly because it occasionally jiggles on its own without input from Link. They should have probably been exercised before Zunari put them up for sale, but I guess it's too late now. Number 5. Orca suffered a serious injury that ended his dream of being a swordsman. His figurine description goes on to claim that he returned to Outset and became a fisherman, but as we discussed earlier, there are no fish in these waters. So is he a monster hunter? These look like shark or Georg jaws to me. Number 6. Needle Rock Isle seems to be connected to the ghost ship, because this sign reads, "To the living. Light the 6 torches and dive down to the sea floor. Guide the lost spirit of the boat that forever wanders in darkness." However, the ghost ship chart is not found here, but on the island below it, Diamond Step. Lighting all of the torches in this room simply rewards Link with rupees in the final version, but is this perhaps where the ghost ship chart was originally planned to be found? Alright, I think that's enough of a detour above Hyrule, so it's now time to take the revived Master Sword in hand, the same hand the reassembled Triforce of Courage now resides in, and plunge into the sunken depths of the Forgotten Kingdom, so that the unholy barrier sealing off Ganon's tower from Hyrule Castle can be broken, just like this now tragically broken statue of the Hero of Time. Upon besting flashback bosses, conquering yet another catacomb, and climbing a long set of staircases Ganondorf's always been a big fan of, we come to what just may be my favorite cutscene in the entire game. The build-up is fantastic, as it's actually cleverly an inverse of Ocarina of Time's climax, where instead of the music getting louder and louder as Link ascends, the background track here softens in volume as Link climbs until everything is dead silent, likely because Zelda's napping and he doesn't want to wake her. Just kidding. Upon reaching his destination, Link silently wades through a serene pool of water to the center of the base of the tower's spire, where an unconscious Zelda can be seen through the parting of a semi-transparent curtain, along with a focused, contemplative Ganondorf reading her dreams. He interprets nothing but vast ocean, and proceeds to scorn the gods for sealing Hyrule underneath its waves. His eyes are all white during this monologue, which ends with a cut back to his partially obscured profile, now completely shadowed out besides those glowing eyes, while his body sways back and forth, allowing disproportionately long arms to sprout out to the unsettling sound of bones breaking and reforming, not dissimilar to Link's mask transformations in Majora's Mask. Next are his shoulders, which violently bulk up and spread out, before the demon suddenly grows immensely tall and contorts from side to side as his figure is obscured and a towering shadow is cast over a mortified Link. The camera zooms in on his shocked expression, while the suspenseful strings of the background music build. Our imagination runs wild until the action cuts back, and we get a pan from the bottom to the top of an uncannily shaking creature as the translucent curtain lifts to reveal the boar-looking puppet Ganon, with the real Ganon as its master. The thing then abruptly enlarges again, slamming down its swelled-up fists to intimidate Link. Its appendages are made up of ball joints that extend and resize at will to attack, so Puppet Ganon can stretch out its arms to lunge at Link while keeping the rest of itself stationary. If the string keeping its neck elevated is cut, the morbid marionette's head slumps down. It can eerily spin around in place, swinging its lifeless tail and body around and around in an unnatural way. After 3 hits to its weak spot, the creepy puppet flops up and down until it stays still face down in the water. Link prematurely celebrates while the usual fanfare starts playing, but quickly twists into a sinister version of the song as the boss is raised up by its persisting red heartstring. Its limbs retract inside of its body, which proceeds to writhe and warp before emerging anew as an unsightly spider via smoke cloud, greeting the player with unfocused eyes before launching up into the air and out of sight. The arachnid abomination slams down onto its stomach with its many legs spread out, then quickly raises itself back up to the ceiling. Subduing the spider devil by keeping an eye on its reflection in the water causes the cretin to wriggle and thrash about, then transform one last time into an aggressive, relentless snake that finally explodes once defeated, sending its literal lifeline, the red string that kept it mobile, down so that Link may climb it to face the real thing. It's a long way up, and Link is as tired as can be, but it doesn't stop Ganondorf's monologuing, as it's time to sit through another. I don't mind it at all, we need more Ganondorf monologues. This time, he speaks of the place he hails from, the Gerudo Desert. It was an environment of extremes, he recalls, as burning winds were brought by the sunrise, followed by frigid gales when the night fell. I live in Tucson, Arizona, so I can kind of understand where he's coming from. No matter the time of day, the wind always carried death. The grass, or wind, was always greener in Hyrule, which seemed to bring life rather than the suffering and ruin he knew all too well. I coveted that wind, I suppose, he says as the camera zooms in on his pensive stare, looking out past the space that lay before him and his enemy. Ganondorf having a real discussion that isn't about his sheer lust for power or how he'll crush Link is refreshing for this series. This version of Ganondorf honestly humanizes him the most by giving him a sympathetic drive to explain how he came to be in this position. He doesn't just desire power because that's what bad guys do. He feels he was wronged in this crapshoot that life can be, which is justification enough for him to take what was never handed to him, by any means necessary. The man argues some fair points, as every well-written villain should, but his ambition has become too distorted as he's willing to go as far as to murder innocents to achieve it. So he needs to effectively be dealt with to secure a future for the world above. All these years of scrupulous planning and inflicting pain onto others as a result has led to the 3 Triforce bearers gathered together, so Ganondorf can finally summon the golden relic to touch so that his wish may be granted. The gods haven't listened to him yet in this life, but he knows they'll have to pay attention to him when the Triforce is made whole again. With Zelda out of commission and her Triforce of Wisdom seized, all that stands in his way now is Link. Slowly turning his way to make eye contact, the King of Evil lunges forth with a deranged look on his face and freezes for a second before slugging our unfortunate puny hero thrice. Disarmed and enervated, Link can do nothing but watch as his greatest foe waltzes over and steals the 3rd and final Triforce piece from within him. Ganondorf then relishes the moment as the unified golden triangle descends from the sky. With an arm confidently stretched well above his own head, he proclaims his wish to the heavens for Hyrule to be ascended from its watery tomb, and for him to be its new leader. Before Ganondorf can place that hand on the holy artifact to secure his decree, however, he sees that the King of Red Lions, aka the King of Hyrule, who, teleported behind him off screen, has beaten him to it. His wish is the opposite of Ganondorf's, to wash away the ancient land and to give these 2 children a life above its waves. What happens next is astonishing, a top 5 Zelda moment for sure. Ganondorf just puts his arm down and laughs, but it isn't a pleasant laugh in the slightest. It's a laugh of frustration and agony of a manic man who just lost everything he's worked his entire existence for. Ganondorf was so close to fulfilling his life's goal only to have it suddenly snatched away before his very eyes. It's not fair. Ganondorf roars in a broken hysteria as he cocks his head up to the flash floods soon to drown him. Understanding his time is limited and with literally nothing left to lose, he brandishes 2 blades and turns towards a now conscious Link and Zelda with an insane rage in his eyes. His dream may be shattered and his life nearly over, but he can still die exacting his revenge. The fight itself is pretty frightening and anxiety-inducing, as Ganondorf immediately leaps into the air with his weapons drawn, hurtling towards the screen with ferocity. It's a no-holds-barred duel to the death against a man 3 times Link's size, all while the torrent of seawater encloses the arena. After getting pierced with a few light arrows from Zelda's bow, Ganondorf's decided he's had enough, and leers with a look that could kill as he calmly sheathes one of his swords and backhands Zelda with enough force to knock her out cold. Why he didn't just kill her at this point, I'm not sure, but as a result of leaving her alive, the girl shakes it off soon enough and hatches the idea to shoot her righteous arrows not at Ganondorf directly, but at Link's projectile-deflecting mirror shield to ricochet into and stun him so that Link can land a literal killing blow. One more successful A-press from here launches Link skyward after swiftly slashing his now dazed opponent, rendering him open to a downward strike straight into his skull. The screen fades to white, and after just a couple of seconds that feel like forever because of the surprise of what just happened, the game fades back in to reassure you that what you thought you just saw was real. About a third of the Master Sword's blade has been lodged into the forehead of the Zelda series' most formidable foe. Link stoically stands in place, frozen atop his enemy still clutching the sword that just did his arch-rival in. The next cut to Ganondorf shows the sword about halfway to his brain, and with Ganondorf's dying words, the man groans, then chuckles and utters, "The wind, it is blowing." This could be read a few different ways. I interpreted these last words to mean him feeling the breeze of Hyrule one last time before he and it eternally drowns, which further emphasizes his insatiable obsession with the Hyrule of old. It also nicely wraps up the more tragic aspect of his character, in that he's forever cursed to covet that wind he'll never be able to have, because forces of good will always exist to turn the tides and push back his evil intent. Ganondorf could also simply be remembering his harsh childhood in the Gerudo Desert, referencing those aforementioned winds carrying death and how they've finally come for him. Though I've also seen some fans comment about how they thought the line referred to the proverbial winds of fate, and how they'll always blow in favor of Link and Zelda, but never for him or his people. Whatever the case may be, the Master Sword then completely encases the brute in stone, sealing him and itself together under the ocean forever. A fact which has yet to be disproven, as they've stayed dormant in every subsequent game directly following the Wind Waker's timeline. Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks feature different ultimate swords to wield and new main antagonists to face. But getting back to our Link here who just killed a man, the boy nearly collapses in exhaustion before Zelda catches him, and the two listen to the solemn words of their king. He speaks about the regrets of his past, and how his unhealthy rumination on those regrets is not dissimilar to Ganondorf. So he wishes to remain and be washed away with the ancient land, while Link and Zelda move on to new horizons and towards a hopeful future for themselves. The king says his goodbyes right before the falling water finishes flooding the last of the ground they're all standing on, and fully submerges the trio underneath the sea. Link and Zelda begin floating up towards the surface, shielded in a magic bubble, likely because of the king's Triforce wish, so Link reaches out in an attempt to save him. The king does begin to stretch out his hand, but soon retracts it and slumps his head down, quietly accepting his fate as our hero is risen to safety. This act is the king essentially committing suicide so that the old Hyrule truly dies with him, allowing these children to live unburdened and unbound in a new world. Upon being rescued by Tetra's crew, which includes Errol, at least temporarily, as she's now wearing a piratey red dress with skulls on it, a final cutscene shows Link on his no longer sentient boat, since the king has passed, as revealed via the soulless eyes, next to Tetra's pirate ship, preparing to sail out to try and discover new land. All of Outset Island sees off Link and his new friends, which probably breaks Grandma's heart again. Though let's be real, it's not like you were spending much time with her throughout the game anyway, so sorry Grandma. I'll be back for more soup one day. Maybe, but probably not. Phantom Hourglass on the Nintendo DS picks up right after this moment, and I guess Link had an accident off screen soon after the credits rolled, leaving his unspirited ship resting in peace at the bottom of the ocean, because he's shown aboard the pirate ship in this sequel game instead. Continuity errors aside, Phantom Hourglass is a fun follow-up to an amazing, timeless game, which I may get to for dark aspects eventually, but for now, I'd like to leave my fate to wherever the wind guides me. Will it be Twilight Princess or Tears of the Kingdom? All will be revealed soon enough. I'd like to take a moment to thank my amazing longtime Patreon supporters Brian and Susan, Jennifer, Kathleen, Caleb, Dat Barry, Tori, and Janssen, plus a new member of the PK Love tier, Captain Harlock. If you'd like to have your name displayed in a fun way at the end of every one of my videos like this and get early access to upcoming projects, you can sign up now at patreon.com/ThaneGaming. Thank you for your continued support, and thanks to everyone else for watching. I'll see you for more Zelda next time.